Hello, this is Alex Amster, and you're listening to my podcast. I was formerly Unnamed NFL Source, and now I'm switching over and expanding my media platform. And part of that is this podcast, which is uploaded on YouTube as well as posted on my Twitter page. Thank you. All right, so here we are kicking off the inaugural episode. I was Unnamed NFL Source. Now I'm Alex Amster, which is my name. I guess I've always been that, but I just wanted to come on here and talk a little bit about myself and give you guys some background and maybe help you understand as far as why I made this change and also how I've been able to leak all this news throughout these years and gain this following. And so to start, just a little bit about me again. My name is Alex Amster. I'm 19 years old, and I've been doing this for a couple of years now. I was a big Giants fan, although I try to stay objective because I've been reporting the past couple of years. But essentially, I've had a good background growing up in media, whether it was broadcasting or writing sports articles. It's there's a lot of things I've done in that realm. And with that being said, I've had a lot of connections, and I obviously still do with New York Giants ownership, Pittsburgh Steelers ownership, along with countless NFL reporters and analysts and people in the media. So I have a lot of connections, and I felt like I needed to leverage that. Just for you Giants fans, if I know something, months earlier, or whether it's a draft pick or firing of Dave Gettleman, I feel the obligation to give you guys that accurate news and report it early. And so that's how this whole thing started. I was kind of taken back by the following I gained. I never really did it to gain Twitter followers. It was more just to provide this information for the fans. But one thing I've learned is when you're reporting accurate things early, you're going to gain a following and people are going to start to pay attention. So that's just a little bit about me. I'm also very well versed as far as UFC, the mixed martial arts world, as far as an analyst, but also source wise and things going on there. So that's another aspect I'm going to touch, as well as college football. And so it's mainly going to be football content and mixed martial arts content, but I know the majority of my following is within the football realm, specifically with the Giants, and I will continue to provide that good information. But I came here today and I just felt like it was time to, take the mask off per se and let everyone know who I am. And, part of that, maybe, I thought about it and it might, there is an appeal to the unnamed and the mystery behind who is this person, but I feel like I can be more personable and interact with people and also expand my media realm outside of football as well with this change. So that's a little bit about my mindset, myself, and why I did this. And that's basically it. I'm looking forward to this journey and continuing to grow. And you'll see not only will this will be posted on my Twitter feed. It's obviously on YouTube, which is where you're watching it right now, but on my website, you can also ask me any questions and things of that nature. So it's going to be a much more interactive experience than what Unnamed NFL Source was, which was essentially just a Twitter page. So making big upgrades here. And that just about wraps it up. If you guys have any questions, obviously, I hope, you can, whether it's on my website or Twitter, you can go ahead. And now we're just going to move into the second half of the episode where I'm going to interview current Wisconsin commit quarterback Marshall Howe. And we're going to discuss the college football realm, the Wisconsin football program, as well as things going on in the college football world with regards to NIL deals, the transfer portal, things of that nature, because that is a wild business that's going on right now. So that'd be really important to touch on that. And I hope you guys enjoy. All right, so today I'm here with a special guest, newly committed Wisconsin quarterback, Marshall Howe, going to be an incoming freshman next year. Marshall, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Inaugural episode, so excited to have him on and want to give you guys some content. College football player, Big Ten player, so something good here, excited about this. I guess just hopping right into it, maybe just discussing a little bit about the state of college football with the transfer portal, recruitment, extra year eligibility, all those things. I know that's a challenge you faced in being an athlete who's trying to play at the college level. So
yeah, I think there's a lot going on right now in college football, especially with the transfer portal and how the NIL has now changed the transfer portal as well a lot. Just to begin with, the transfer portal has been crazy, especially this year. You've had over 2,000 people into the transfer portal in a short period of time, and well more than that over the course of this entire offseason. And that changes the way that teams look at recruiting, changes the way that teams look at their roster. So teams, especially late in the recruiting cycle, aren't looking towards high school players anymore. They're looking directly at college guys that have experience that are looking for a new home. And so not only does it change the outlook of a college player's career at the school, it changes the way that colleges look at high school prospects, changes the way that colleges look at their rosters. So, for example, take Lincoln Riley coming from Oklahoma and going to USC. He brought in, I don't know what the number exactly was, but at least a dozen guys through the transfer portal and basically made up a free agent roster from guys from all over the country. And so there was guys that were on the team that were looking to make a name for themselves to become starters that probably would have if it weren't for the transfer portal. But Lincoln Riley comes in and basically creates this whole new program with brand new guys from all across the country. And that kind of encapsulates what the free agency aspect of the transfer portal now. I think it's really good for some guys looking for a second chance, for high-level guys that wanted to get out of a toxic environment like Spencer Rattler did. I think it's a really interesting kind of opportunity for them to find a new home and not have to sit out a year like you used to with transfers. But for the vast majority of guys that are going into the transfer portal, or not the vast majority, but a little over 50% don't find a new home, which is a scary possibility for a lot of guys going into the transfer portal. But because there's guys that have had success doing it, they're looking at the opportunity as a really good one. So I think it's a little bit dangerous for some individuals that are transferring. It's made the college football landscape a lot different because of the way it's changed recruiting. And it's made it a lot different for high school guys that are looking to get recruited based on their senior year film. At this point, there's not really a lot that goes into – I mean, there's a couple guys that will get recruited, especially high-level guys that will get recruited a lot based on their senior year film. But if you're looking to make a jump for your junior to senior year, it has to be done in the offseason. It has to be done at camps well before you get into the late into your senior season, because at that point, teams are starting to move past the guys that they're bringing in from high school and what classes that you're in, and they're looking towards the transfer portals to fill the holes that they're going to be left.
Right. No, it's definitely an interesting dynamic. You're talking about USC with Lincoln Riley. Obviously, they had the number one transfer class in the nation, and it's just crazy. I mean, they basically took like half of Oklahoma's offense with them, and it leaves programs in shambles. And Oklahoma's doing well with new coach from Clemson, but it's tough, and it's tough on the high school athlete. It's tough on the college athlete, like you said. Like the majority of the people that go in the transfer portal, besides the top guys, aren't really coming out with amazing options. But it's definitely a crazy process. And with the extra year eligibility too, you're seeing high school students and athletes who have to compete with, grown men essentially for college spots, which is not, fair. Might not be, I wouldn't call it fair, but it's definitely just a difficult situation. But with like the pandemic, it's kind of the NCAA's hands were tied a little bit. But I thought it was interesting. Yeah, you brought up USC, and I guess it parallels well. It's like NIL deals because they just signed Jordan Addison from Pitt. It was kind of like a bidding war. He had, Texas. He had a couple of schools.
That was definitely a big story. Obviously, recently was Addison because the original report came back that USC was basically offering him $3 million, and that's why he entered the transfer portal to begin with. There was obviously some debate on that, and he said that it wasn't true, but at the end of the day, people are going to start getting recruited based on NIL deals. I mean, if you look at Tennessee's got a quarterback commit in the class of 2023 who's obviously very talented, he's a 5-star, but supposedly he was offered a huge NIL deal before he even committed to commit there. And so the way recruiting has changed and recruiting within the transfer portal has changed is really it's spectacular to see. I mean, kids are going to be getting paid a lot more money at a young age. And you'll see guys going all over the place. And even in basketball, it's going to be the same thing. You got Imani Bates offered $1 million to go to Eastern Michigan. It'll basically be a free agency with NIL deals, with kids not going to programs for academic values or the program tradition anymore, but basically who can bid the highest at a certain extent. And I think there's a lot of, obviously you got Saban and Saban and Jimbo obviously had that little dispute that was publicized about the NIL money that was being thrown at recruits from Texas A&M, and I think that debate will keep on going on until something will happen with the NCAA, and I think the NCAA will start to regulate the NIL market a little bit, because as of right now, it's an open market. Obviously, things are happening now that weren't supposed to be happening, that probably aren't necessarily legal in a lot of the places, just because of the amount of money that's starting to be transacted into these college kids' pockets. And I think that it'll continue to happen until the NCAA makes the pendulum swings on the other side of a free market to some regulations, and eventually there'll be some stability to it. But I think that the way that it's going right now, the NCAA will have to step in sometime soon. But for the time being, it's really cool to see all these college athletes getting paid a lot of money, because I definitely think they deserve to get paid. There's so many guys that were in college, especially football players, that never got the opportunity to be paid and didn't necessarily end up doing well in the NFL. And so hopefully that for the time being, guys will be able to get their fair share of what they bring in for the school as well, and be able to get paid a lot of money while they can.
Right. You kind of hit the nail on the head there, talking about how players really haven't been able to make money off their, name, image, likeness. And it's kind of happened for years. Even a guy like Trevor Lawrence, who's doing well, first overall pick, but you see the type of impact, he had on a program, or just a lot of these top guys, the amount of money they specifically bring into schools is in these programs, and the programs make the money and they monetize it through TV deals, jersey sales, ticket sales, all that stuff, but the players have never been able to get a piece. And hopefully maybe you get some in your future. That would be cool. I know you got a long ways ahead, but it's still something to be excited about as a player. And again, it probably needs regulations, but I think the important thing is now is players are being able to represent themselves a little bit better. The only issue I do see in the college football spectrum is it's essentially a no salary cap. So you're going to see bigger programs like the USCs, the Miamis, the Texas A&Ms, in these big cities with the most funding, that are able to take over college football because they're simply able to pay more. It's kind of like the Yankees and Dodgers of baseball. And so that might shift the competitive scale in college football, which is why I think Nick Saban is frustrated, because Alabama, although they have almost all the funding in the world, they're going to start to be on, an even playing field with some of these other programs, because it's not just about recruiting, it's about the money in the city and all that too.
And guys like Ryan Day just came out and said that he would need probably around $13 million just to keep his roster intact. Basically, of NIL, $13 million in NIL money to keep his roster intact. And so I think you'll start seeing that a lot of money get thrown around, not only just to recruit guys, but to keep guys on the team that are currently there. So it's not only just, all right, a one-time fee of, we're going to pay you basically $1 million in NIL money if you come here, but consistently year over year, they're going to be having to keep paying them money to retain guys. And that's not necessarily a bad thing as a college athlete. That's something that's exciting. I mean, you're getting a lot of money, and it's due at a certain extent. I mean, it's been a long time coming for college athletes who really do bring in a lot of money for schools that are the face of programs, that are the face of schools. And so I think that it's interesting for a college athlete, but at a certain point, I do feel like the NCAA will step in and regulate it to some extent.
Right. And I think you did a great job touching on that there. And just transitioning here to another topic which has kind of been up for debate, as far as like the elimination of divisions within conferences in college football. Obviously, I know between the Big Ten, East and West, there's been a little bit of debate there. The Pac-12, they got rid of those specific divisions. So I was just curious on your thoughts on that. Now that you're in the Big Ten, and people will say, well, Wisconsin's division is not as challenging, as the opposite.
Well, I think there's definitely a case to be made, and I think that if you look at it on a year-to-year basis, then it should probably be no more divisions if you want your best teams making the best bowls every single year. And I think that usually with the division system, it will be a lot of the time that you will have the best teams making the best bowls and so on and so forth, making the championship games. I think the Pac-12 did. I think they're obviously the first one. I do see the Big Ten doing it soon. I see a lot of conferences restructuring in certain ways. The SEC talked about doing pods. I don't think they will, but they talked about it. The ACC could potentially be seeing some sort of realignment, something like that. As for the Big Ten specifically, like if you look at this year, if you look at last year, yes, I definitely think obviously like it's clear the difference, the disparity between the East and the West in terms of like how teams ended ranked. But I think if you look traditionally and look at an average of a longer time span, like if you look at a longer timeline, the difference between the East and the West isn't as great as a lot of people make it out to be. Obviously, last year you had Michigan ending up being in the college football playoff, Ohio State being a college football playoff level team, Michigan State was a top 10 team to end the season. Penn State's obviously really good as well. So you got 4 teams that are really good in that league and in that division, and that made a lot of people question whether the divisions were the right and fairly so. But if you look at over the past 10 years, if you look at the past 20 years or however long you want to go back, I think the programs match up a little bit more even than they're made out to be right now. Obviously, you got Nebraska in the West, who they haven't been a top tier program for a long time, but back in the late 80s and 90s, they were one of the best programs in the country. More recently, Iowa and Wisconsin are both top tier programs. They're both consistently ranked. Northwestern over the past 5 years has been ranked consistently 3 out of the last 5 years. You got teams like Minnesota popping up here and there. PJ Fleck's obviously a really great coach. He had them in the Big Ten championship, or should have been in the Big Ten championship a couple years ago when they made their run and beat Penn State. And so you have a lot of really good programs right now. It doesn't seem fair at all, and I understand that. And so I do think that it is smart to be going to divisions, or just be going away from divisions and be going to an open playing field. But I don't think the difference is as great as people are making it out to be right now. At the end of the day, you do want your best teams competing for a championship. Last year, it was deservedly so that Michigan and Ohio State should have played for the Big Ten championship, or Michigan State should have had a chance at that as well. But I don't think there's as great of a difference as it's made out to be currently, just because of the strength of the programs in the East right now. And obviously things change as time goes on. You can see, I think there's a lot of teams in the West that are going to be making pushes to become better programs consistently over time. Obviously, Minnesota's doing a great job. I think Wisconsin's doing a great job. I think Iowa's always going to be a good program no matter what. I think a team like Nebraska, who went 3-9 last year but could have gone 9-3 pretty easily, is another team that's going to start making a push to become a better program as well. So I think if you look at a long-term outlook, I think that it's probably smart to go away from divisions just so that year in and year out you get the best teams in the Big Ten championship. But at the end of the day, it's not as big of a difference, and we just happen to be in a time right now where the East is much stronger than the West rankings-wise.
Right. No, that's definitely a compelling argument. And obviously year to year college football, it's not like the NFL where, if a team did, badly or was below average, that it's, almost assumed they're going to repeat that performance next year. It's very rare you see an NFL team kind of jump up, but college football.
Yeah, and it's the same thing if you look at the NFL division, there's a reason NFL has divisions as well. If you look at the NFL divisions, there's some divisions, like right now, the AFC West has arguably 4 teams that should be in the playoffs. But if you look at a team like the AFC South,
NFC East,
yeah. those divisions are going to get one team in the playoffs every year, no matter what.
Pretty lousy.
When they're not going to be as strong as others. And so I think that's kind of just the way that divisions are created. And then the argument is made, okay, if they're going to be making it in college, I don't think they'll ever change what they're doing in the NFL. I think they've done it for a long time. They're going to keep it. But it's sort of the same idea. If you've got divisions that are sending their best team to the playoffs or sending the best team to the championship game, no matter what, then it's kind of how it has been for a while. So who knows? And it's the same thing in the NFL where teams fluctuate. Obviously, like the NFC East is really weak right now, but go back a couple years, you've got 3 Super Bowls between them in the last decade and a half.
Right.
15 years. 20 have won 2, Eagles have won 1.
Right.
So
2016. The Cowboys won 13-3. The Giants were 11-5 and a wild card team. So it's obviously there's that aspect of that, and that obviously is just something that an argument can be made in not only football but really all sports about division. So I think it's interesting they're targeting the college football, because I think people are always trying to alter and change the college football world to have the best viewing experience possible.
I think that's why the college football product is such the one that so many people are drawn to over the NFL. There's a large majority or large population in the United States that really prefer college football to NFL, just viewership wise. And I think that one of the reasons is because the NFL is very set in their ways, and it's because it's been successful in the past. But the college football is so willing to kind of change and reshape their landscape. And so people enjoy watching. Obviously, you've got allegiances to schools and stuff like that as well. But I think college football does a great job of adapting and creating the best environment for players, for teams, and for viewers as well. So,
right. Very true. Very true. Well, that just about wraps it up. I wanted to thank you, obviously, for coming on. You know, a good friend of mine, and wish you the best of luck this season. We're, looking forward to hopefully seeing you out in the field.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be back on the podcast before long.
Yep.
Maybe from Madison, or maybe after our season. We'll see.
Yeah, exactly. All right.